Why did you choose to do political science, or did you
Yeah.
always know you wanted to do
Yeah, I
politics?
didn't. I heard about it, and then I've always been interested in politics.
Yeah.
I didn't actually explore a lot of their majors.
Uh-huh.
I didn't even know, for example, about international development studies,
Yeah.
which overlapped with some of the classes I had. And I
Yeah.
thought, wow, this is like, there's a lot of niche majors that I had no idea that are out there.
Yeah. But you just heard about it and decided to
Yeah, I
explore a
kind
little
of
bit of
just was
it.
like, I've heard, I'm interested in politics, but I didn't have a lot of information around what it would
Yeah.
be like.
So for some students considering political science or debating if they should go into it or not, is there any advice you would give them?
Yeah, I think in general, the best you can do is just talking to older students about their experiences.
Got it.
I think by taking these prereqs, you can get an idea for what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
And the more seriously you can take that process to say, hey, I'm not sure. And I need to prove to myself that this is somewhere I want to be, something I want to do.
Yeah.
It will pay dividends later on if you're serious about that, and consider different options. Don't be set on one thing immediately just because you feel like you started and you can't switch.
Definitely.
Most people switch, and it's totally fine.
Yeah. So just be serious and invest in exploring.
Yeah. But again, my main advice is, I just said be serious, but don't be so serious, right? Put in the effort, do your due diligence, and have your best attempt at understanding the differences. But at the end of the day, it's not going to matter super much, what major you choose.
Yeah.
It's more about the experience you get out of it.
And you did it with business economics. Was that manageable?
Yeah, it was manageable. I think it was a little tight. I think it would have been harder had I not had certain AP classes coming in to fit it into 4 years, and I did have to take a couple of summers.
Got it.
But I'd say it was really nice to have a variety of types of thinking each day.
Yeah.
It's really nice to go from doing hard math-based economics to something about the psychology of thought.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So it's just like a broader education.
Yeah, that was probably one of my favorite things about college.
Sweet. And so it didn't feel like it was overloading with 2 majors?
I don't think so. You have to do it right, and I think you need to really, if you want a double major, you need to plan.
Yeah.
And you need to talk to counselors.
And now that you've finished the whole major, do you feel like political science impacted your views, or did you have any major takeaways from the major, looking at it as a broadly speaking?
Yeah, I think more than anything, it informed my view of what's going on in our country, in a primary sense of the fact that I now understand that what you see and hear in the news is not the full story. There are a lot of factors behind these things, and we need to be very careful about placing cause on one thing or another.
Got it. Because like you said earlier, politics is very messy. There's a lot of things that affect
very messy, and people naturally want to jump to an answer. They want to say why.
Yeah, they want the simple answer.
And I think in particular, for example, the 2016 presidential election was an example of that, where it was won very narrowly, and that election happened, and all of a sudden there are all these statements of what our country has become and what things are today.
Here's why.
Here's why people have changed overnight, and in fact, there's many reasons for why that election went the way it did. It's not clearly explainable, and at the end of the day, it was very close and came down slightly over one edge. Does that mean that everyone suddenly changed overnight and that America is a different place? Not necessarily.
Yeah. Was there any particular skills that you feel like it gave you, or was it more like information?
I think that's kind of what I'm getting at, is mainly just critical thinking and understanding that there's more to the story always. That, I think, is so important if you want to go into politics or governance in some capacity later on, and not even necessarily in politics in the traditional sense, but it can be in business. It's the same thing. There's politics within the organization of people in any scenario.
Was there anything you didn't like about political science?
I did enjoy the major again. Though, I really do think one of the challenges is that because every class is so custom built by the professors, it can be really hit or miss, and you do need to really invest time in learning who the professors are, what they're teaching, and what past students have said about them. I would try to find friends that have gone through them and not necessarily just rely on the internet or Bruin Walk.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people will, give their determination on the class based on how easy it was to get an A.
Yeah.
When in fact that, I don't think that necessarily correlates to your experience in the class.
Yeah.
Or even says how likely you are to do well in that class.
Yeah.
Right.
So these professors really shape how your experience will be like.
Right. If you can find some good professors early on and look for classes that they are teaching later on, I'd say that is even more important than picking topics that sound interesting. That's often not the best way, I think, to pick a class.
Because at the end of the day, it's just a class name. It's just a title.
Yeah, it's about who's teaching it.
Yeah.
Because they can make a really boring topic really interesting.
Yeah, or vice versa.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you recommend students do to find good professors?
Yeah, again, the main thing is talking to people. I think in a department you have a number of professors that are really esteemed, that have been teaching a really long time, that are really well known.
Yeah.
There are probably a dozen, maybe more of them.
Yeah.
And you can talk around, ask people in the department, ask counselors, who was your favorite teacher? Who's your favorite teacher here?
Yeah.
And they'll tell you.
Just ask around.
Yeah, and that will give you a really good sense. You also have a lot of, non-tenured professors coming in that have teaching one or two classes that are kind of new, and they can be amazing, and it can be not so much. So it's really a hit or miss major in that sense.
With your experience, as a whole, did you enjoy your professors and your class experiences?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it was because I tried to spend a lot of time actually going to class. And if it was a priority of, if I have limited time, it's class or reading all the content, I'd always pick going to class. And really being engaged there and trying to understand what is this professor trying to get at.
Yeah.
Made it a much more enriching experience than I need to learn this content or get through this material.
Yeah.
Or here's a list of classical writers that I need to know everything about. That was not going to be super
So class
helpful.
was always most important.
Yeah.
Did you do anything outside of the classroom related to political science?
I was pretty involved in student government, if that counts.
Why did you decide to pursue student government?
Yeah, I mean, I was interested in leadership, and it was a really good opportunity for my own learning and growth, and I probably learned as much outside the classroom in college than I did in.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
think you hear from a lot of people, I think my best advice for new students is, this is probably the lowest stakes environment you will ever be in to fail. There's no reason not to take hard classes, not to sign up for clubs or apply for clubs you think you won't get into, or run for positions in some form of leadership. There's no reason not to do that, because at the end of the day, it's just college. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I think through the process, you will learn and grow in ways that you won't be able to do nearly as easily in a risk-free environment once you graduate.
I like that a lot. I've never heard it put that way. It's like a super low-stake environment.
I think you forget that. It's really easy to forget that because it feels so intense while you're here.
So high pressure.
And but if you remember that in no time you're going to be gone, and it won't really have mattered what you did, what you tried, what you succeeded at, what you might have failed at in college, it won't make a big difference. Even career-wise, things will work out.
That's so cool.
It's going to be okay.
Yeah, and taking these risks and these opportunities, there's so much more to gain. You learn so much from them.
Exactly.
What was your role in student government?
Yeah, I did a few different student government related roles.
Yeah.
I ran for USAC in my third year for EVP, External Vice President. And then my senior year, I was an advisor to the UC Board of Regents. And so a lot of that involved understanding the UC's governance and bureaucracy and how the system is run and how decisions are made that trickle down to affect how we experience college. And I actually was able to do a lot of government advocacy on behalf of the UC as a public university, and a lot of that because it's something that I'm really passionate about is public higher education and what the UC is able to do. for the state of California and the people here.
Yeah.
And so I was able to do a lot of advocacy in both Sacramento and DC around UC funding, around a whole slew of issues from sexual assault and sexual violence on campus to food insecurity and housing for students.
So when you're in Sacramento and DC and advising to the UC Board of Regents, that was to advocate for the students' behalf, right?
Yes.
And how did that whole experience relate to your major?
It was really interesting taking political science classes and then being able to actually do work within our political system. The reason being, once I was able to have an understanding of how lawmakers make decisions, which is the basis of so much of political science, it becomes a lot easier to try and influence them. Understand what factors affect how they decide to fund the UC, for example, or provide funding for mental health services on campuses, or housing for students, right? If you understand the foundation of how they make their decisions, that are always very calculated, and normally around the decision of how do I get reelected? Will this help or hurt me? And so, for example, a really big initiative I worked on campus was student voter registration, because when a legislator decides to visit campus, they will have their staff first look at how many students there actually vote. I actually had experiences. I had an experience with one lawmaker. I was waiting in the waiting room to meet with them, and mentioned casually to the staff that we had led a voter registration drive and registered 10,000 students on campus to vote, which is a pretty significant number in a lot of races.
It really got them interested.
Yeah, and so when I told them that, suddenly the lawmaker was available. And so decisions are really strategic, and understanding what motivates them to do certain things made it a lot easier to be able to influence them in favor of supporting students.
Do you feel like you learned a lot of that in the classroom in political science, or was that mainly from your outside
it really had to blend together. I think learning it in class is one thing, but when you're able to suddenly see it in front of you and actually practice it, it really is a much deeper learning experience.
So final question, now that you've finished political science and you've seen it all, looking back, do you think it was a good decision? Do you think it was worth it to pursue political science?
Yeah, I really did enjoy the major, and I think I got a lot out of it, especially by really participating in the classes and understanding what the professors were trying to teach, and that stuff that I can't get in books, that I can't get on the internet. We have some pretty phenomenal political science professors in terms of what they've studied, and they're really well known worldwide. If you can seek those out and find those, the experience will be something I don't think you can get anywhere else.
And it was awesome that you're so involved outside the classroom too. That all built
that for me was the most important thing in college. So.
Definitely.